Welcome back, everybody. And in today's video lesson, we are going to look at an overview of voice leading. So let's look at a couple of key points here. Voice leading is the study of how voices interact. Now, what do we mean by voice? Voice is just simply a fancy word for instrument. So this could be a guitar, bass, piano, you name it, right? We typically exclude percussive instruments, so we generally don't want to consider something like drums or congas or something like that. So we would generally say not these. Why? Because we don't consider them to have notes so much as we just consider them for their percussive value, unless you're like Terry Bozzio. We've already considered one type of voice leading, and that would be harmonization. All right, and we'll take a look at that later on. And the concept of voice leading is that it's going to measure distance and direction. So let's look at some examples. There are four basic types. So two types here are parallel motion. And so if we were to think about parallel motion, the basic core concept is that we have to have at least two voices, and we're going to say that they're going to go the same direction, and the same distance. So if we think about a visual for that, well, what if we had a voice that was going this direction by that distance? So we can think of it as a vector, and we have another voice that's going the same distance and the same direction. Does it mean that they're the same notes? No, they don't have to be the same notes, but they do have to have the same identical spacing between the notes at all times. So now let's look at another example here. And so what if we had that going down instead of up? So voice one is the red voice, and it's going down, and voice two is also going down. So you can see that these are both going down by the same distance. So their same direction is down, and here the direction is up, and the distance is the same as well. Now let's consider similar motion. And in similar motion, we're going to have the same direction, but we're going to have different distances. Here's a great example. If I did a voice, and here's my voice that's going up, and I have a second voice that is also going up, but it's going up by a different distance. Okay, now what if I had that voice going down? Well, then I would have the same idea here. They're both going down, but they're going to be going down by different distances. So we have the same direction, but different distances. This is what we would kind of consider to be our traditional harmonization. So this right here is traditional harmonization, right? When we think about harmonization, we just did a whole thing about it. This is what it is. In other words, when you think to yourself like, oh, I want to harmonize by thirds or sixths or something like that, this is what you're using. You would actually be using this setup if you were harmonizing by fifths. This is more like by fifths if you negated the final, like the seventh degree. Moving on, and let's take a look at some other ones here. We have contrary motion. Contrary motion is a kind of a neat one. And so contrary motion just says, well, I have one voice that goes up, and the other voice has to go contrary to that. Now, I can have that voice go contrary down by the same distance, and I could also have it go by any other distance. So it doesn't matter what distance the other one is. Okay, and the same respect goes for this voice. Okay, so it doesn't matter what distances they are, just as long as they're going opposite directions, we consider that to be contrary motion. So the key points here, I kind of did it out of order, but it's opposite direction, and this is any distance. Okay, and that's contrary motion. Now let's look at the final one here, which is going to be oblique motion. So what is oblique motion? Well, oblique motion is going to say that one voice stays the same. So we're going to have a static voice, and the other voice goes in any direction. So I'll just put second voice goes any direction, and it actually also goes any distance. And that actually makes sense because there's no real reference point. Like the first voice is not moving, and if there's no movement to it, the other voice can go wherever it wants. There's no real reference point, right? There's just that single note. You can think about if you had a point, and if you were to draw another point in reference to it, you're just going to have a whole bunch of points around it. But if that point were moving, now you have a way of aligning to go, well, if one point is moving, now you have a line. If I have another set of points that are moving, then that's a line. Well, we don't have that. We just have a single point. So what is that going to look like visually? Well, visually we would have, here's our first voice, and our second voice can do this, or maybe this, or this, or this. In other words, it can go up, it can go down, it can go up by a lot or by a little, it can go down by a lot or down by a little. It doesn't matter, but that's the idea of oblique. It's one voice is staying static relative to the other voices. So that's a general overview of voice leading. We have parallel, similar, contrary, and oblique motion, and we're going to explore this further in future videos. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy what we do, just go ahead and take a moment to hit that subscribe button for us so that we can go ahead and continue to produce more great content for you.